You're very welcome back. No, we didn't scare him away.
No, former Taoiseach Leo Varadkar is still here. We were just talking about attention spans, so we're grand. We had a break in between, Leo. Sure, it's good to be here. Now, you out of office, but very much not forgotten. You mentioned your column there in the Sunday Times, and you also talked about it's nice to have intellectual freedom. And you certainly do feel like you've got a little bit more freedom. No more so than during the fuel protests when you made a comment on Matt Cooper's podcast in relation to them saying people in rural Ireland are very quick to tell people in urban Ireland that we're the real workers, we're the ones paying the bills, we're the ones feeding the country. People got very, very angry with you and what you said.
Yeah, look, I was trying to make a serious point, and I made aims of it, quite frankly. And look, that's why I was happy to withdraw my remarks, and I apologise to anyone who I did offend, and I've no difficulty doing that again. I'm not out to offend anyone anymore. That's not my job. Not that I ever was. But like one thing I did find, and this kind of speaks to what we were saying earlier, people who listened to the podcast, who kind of heard the relevant 10 minutes, had a very different impression of what I said or what I was trying to say than people who saw a clip or maybe reacted to somebody else's reaction. So look, that's the way the world works. I'm a big boy. I know that's the way things go. But it was a serious point that I was making, but one that was not well made.
But do you think that a rural-urban divide is there and it's getting bigger in relation to cost of living and what's currently happening in Ireland?
Well, actually, that was part of the point I was making, was that the rural-urban divide in Ireland is not as bad as it is in America, for example, or France. Because so many of us who live in urban Ireland are from rural areas. Yeah. So many of us who live in urban Ireland are one generation from the farm. So this is actually the point I was making as part of a bigger point. But, you know, it is a factual case that the vast majority of our taxes are paid in the cities by businesses and by people there, but spending is spread evenly across the country. But like, that's not a bad thing. Like, I voted for 13 budgets that transferred money from urban Ireland to rural Ireland. I set up the rural department, which is putting a lot of money into rural Ireland, and I fought really hard for the national broadband scheme. Remember, everyone was against that, and that was because I wanted to connect broadband to every farm, every home, every business in Ireland. The point I was making is that's not acknowledged. There's a politics in the moment in Ireland where people are going around saying that policy in Ireland is made by these wealthy urban elites for themselves. Like, that's not what the facts say. That's not what common sense would tell you if you follow the numbers. That's not the truth, and that's what I was pushing back against. But I made a mess of saying it.
Do you think they handled the fuel protest correctly?
Oh, look, it's tough. I'm glad I wasn't there having to deal with that. I had to deal with a few very serious issues like that myself, and there isn't always a right answer. Like, the underlying problem, obviously, is what's going on in the world. You know, we see cost of living going up. That's driven by Trump's war in Iran. Before that, it was driven by Putin's war in Ukraine. And before that, it was driven by COVID, by central banks printing all this money that governments needed to help people out. So, you know, what's underlying that? It's not something that can be fixed in Marion Street, unfortunately. This rising cost of living is a fact all over the world, driven by different factors. Now, governments can help, but only to a certain extent.
Realistically, shutting down the country, it's a difficult one for the government to deal with, but it shouldn't really be allowed, should it?
Well, I don't think it should be allowed. You know, the laws are the laws, and they're there to be enforced, and it's not right for anyone to block a port or block an airport or stop people getting to work, stop kids going to school. There's legitimate forms of protest, and sometimes those protests have to involve an amount of disruption. But I think when you're stopping kids going to school, when you're stopping nurses getting to hospitals, when you're stopping people getting to their appointments, when you're stopping, food and fuel coming into our country, that's unacceptable in my view, and people should be prosecuted for that.
And I want to talk about the hospitals in a minute, you being a doctor. But Leo, honestly, after that podcast went out, did you have like Simon and Helen McEntee, even Micheál Martin on the phone going, what are you, like, did you get the phone call going, what are you doing, man?
No, I didn't actually. No.
Did you not?
I met Simon on the Monday right after, when it was starting to brew, and we talked about it, and we had a very good conversation. That's because we were in Arseneukron for a council estate meeting, which I'm on for life, one of the residual responsibilities I have. But very few people call me. One person claimed they did several times on TV, and I have no missed messages on my phone, and only one missed phone call, but I'll address that another day. But one thing I did discover, and this is something I should have realised, I'm not a Fine Gael representative anymore. I'm not a Fine Gael spokesperson anymore. I do support the party. I'm looking forward to Simon Harris being Taoiseach again. I think he's going to be great. But there are still people who still associate things that I say with Fine Gael. And I felt bad about that because, I made life harder for my colleagues. There were by-elections going on. A good colleague of mine, Martin Aden, as Minister for Agriculture, he then had to respond. And I should have had enough cop on, quite frankly, to realise that whether I like it or not, even in 5 or 10 years' time, people will still think that I'm speaking for Fine Gael, even though I'm not, because I've no authority or right to do so.
But is that
so I just have to bear that in mind.
But is that not the point? When you're looking at Rory Stewart and Alistair Campbell and the rest is politics in the UK, or you're looking at people who have left the Westminster fold. In Ireland, we are always looked as you're still speaking for your party.
Yeah.
Do we not want people to be left off the leash more and be like, well, I don't have to toe a party line anymore, I have an opinion?
Well, look, I'd hope so,
Okay.
and that's where I'd like to be. Like I say, still support Fine Gael, still a member of Fine Gael. Don't speak for the party.
Okay.
But look, I get it. Like Ivan Yates, I think he was 20 years out of Fine Gael and wasn't even a member anymore. And he said stuff during the presidential campaign that then came back on Heather Humphreys. So look, I'll just have to bear that in mind.
Your legacy. Listen, one minister with certainly a lot of ambition is the Minister for Health, Jennifer Carroll McNeill. She had a recent win between the government around the Rotunda Hospital and consultants offering public-only consultation around maternity care. Were you impressed with that? Were you surprised as a doctor that the consultants stepped down, the Rotunda stepped down in their decision to...
I was surprised they did it in the first place. And I was part of negotiating that contract.
You were surprised that Jennifer Carroll McNeill went after?
No, I was surprised that the Rotunda consultants breached their contract.
They breached their contract?
Like this isn't rocket science or complicated law. You sign a contract, them's the rules. And I was involved in negotiating that. We pay consultants between $250,000 and €300,000 a year, and in return, they commit to giving their full attention, full time, to their public patients in our public hospitals. If they want to do part-time work, fine. You do that in your own time. You do it somewhere else. That was the deal. It's
but
there in black and white. They signed the contract. Yeah, like that's not even true. Like they're obstetrician gynecologists. Yeah. There's plenty of private gynae work in private hospitals. They decided that it wasn't enough just to have the €300,000 public contract and also the private gynae work on the side. They also wanted to do private work for pregnant women in our public hospitals, and it was a breach of contract. And I think Mr. Carroll McNeill was right to come down on them like a ton of bricks right away.
And do you think, because you're looking at consultants, and when you look at the pay of consultants in Ireland, and there is a nice level of pay there, but you're being a doctor, you would know an awful lot of consultants, and they'd be like, listen, we're taxpayers, I want to make more money, I want to be able to do this, and plus there's a finite number of them. We know we've got issues in our medical community, and they're like, well, I'm trying to service people, and they kept on saying we have to give people choice.
Yeah, but they have choice. The existing consultants, and there's loads of them, are on the old contract.
But they signed the new contract.
They signed the new contract, and look, like this. I don't care whether you're a doctor, whether you're a teacher, whether you're working in a security company, or whether you're working in a supermarket. Everyone gets the contract of employment, and you read it and you sign it, and that's the way it is. And if you want to change, you try to negotiate a change. You don't break the rules and say, now let's negotiate.
And as we saw Mark Carney, the leader of Canada, over here quite recently, President Donald Trump looks like he is going to be coming to Ireland in the next couple of months as well.
Is that confirmed?
Well, it looks like. I gather there's talk of him coming to Doonbeg. It's been reported that he might be coming to Dublin. You dealt with Donald Trump in his first term.
I did.
What is the difference?
Well, he actually came to Doonbeg. And I remember at the time he wanted me to come to Doonbeg, and we said, no, that's not appropriate. I'm not coming to your golf resort.
Because that's interesting to see.
Well, this is one thing that's changed, So we then agreed that I'd meet him in Shannon Airport, which I did.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, 6-7 years later, I now see world leaders, everybody from Ursula von der Leyen to who, traipsing up to his private resorts to meet him.
Kowtowing, yeah.
And I don't think kissing his ring has worked, quite frankly.
What's changed?
Well, I suppose two big changes. The second time he won an election fair and square with the popular vote. So he had a real strong mandate in the way he didn't previously. But I think his approach in the second term is very different. First time, he didn't even think he was going to win himself.
No.
But what happened then is he genuinely believes the election was stolen off him in 2020. He genuinely believes they tried to persecute him, prosecuted him, tried to get him in jail. And he's come back really angry, really bitter, surrounded by some very extreme people, when he used to be surrounded by quite moderate people before who would have some guardrails. And that's pretty scary. Like in his first term, one of the reasons why he got in was because he wanted to stop America getting drawn into all these wars around the world. Now he's allowing himself, largely because of the extremists around him, to drag America into conflicts. And, you know, because he could replace the president of Venezuela like that, he thought he could do the same thing in Iran. And look at the consequences, not just for us in terms of energy prices, thousands of people dead in Iran and Lebanon. America bombed a girls' school as part of this. These things should never have happened.
AI in use with all of those things that was misused, and that wasn't wrong.
Listen, the book, if you haven't got it already, the paperback version is available. The Guardian, refreshingly honest. And to be fair to you, Leo, it's great to have you in with us, and really really interesting, just chewing the fat and getting your take on different things. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Leo. Cheers. Up next, we'll be chatting to Padraig. Back with you in a minute on Ireland Day.